Mr. Tracy Curry.
Yes, sir, Mr. Paul. Hey,
Welcome. Welcome to the first biweekly. I'm not
Yes.
sure what it's going to be, but a new show.
And we're excited to get started. Ever wonder why some businesses seem to know exactly what you want? Why is that?
Well, I want to know what the name of the show is first before I even get in there. This is a brand new show.
All right, so
it's Pivot Point Live.
Yes, Pivot Point Live.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of businesses are doing that.
Yep, because we want to talk about the economy. We want to talk about what's going on in the marketplace. We want to talk about the environment. And we want to talk about the moves that large business, the big business out there, are making to adjust to these new environmental issues, problems, impacts, and how that can translate to small businesses positioning themselves to be able to accommodate for the changes in the environment. Right? Yeah. Isn't that why we put this together?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like, what a great time to be doing this. I mean, like, there is just so much change that is a challenge for businesses, especially if those that have been in business for 2 decades, even a decade. They've experienced like huge change.
I would say even the past 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there are several of my clients that started their business in 2020. Got smacked around a little bit.
Oh yeah, it got smacked around. So just to give us a little background, Tracy, and make sure that people know where we're coming from, can you give me a 2-minute view into the life of Tracy Currington? Because I really want people to know where you come from and what your perspective is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you for that, Paul. Guys, I've been in the people industry for a little over 2 decades, but I serving from in a faith and a ministry background as a pastor of a local church. But then moving forward here in 2020, launching my own coaching business and helping businesses grow their business and overcome a lot of their customer service. So my side of things is going to be like, if there's a front of the house and the back of the house, the things that are not being seen, the things that are being seen with people, that is my side of things. So I'm more oriented to the people, and I think the greatest competitive advantage for any business is their people, the right people.
And I'm going to add one more thing in there, Tracy, because this is one of the things I appreciate about you most is your background coming from being a pastor. You were amazing on stage. So I kind of want to add that in there because it just lends itself to your authenticity and your candor with your clients.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. And your brilliance, the brilliance that you bring, what connected us together is you possess virtually all the things that I do not, which makes me admire you even more because it's inspirational to think, how does this guy's mind work? So give our viewers that perspective. Who is Paul Routhier?
I don't think anyone wants to be in my mind. It's a labyrinth of cobwebs and things of long past. I come from 30 years in pretty much the startup industry, running sales teams and building sales and marketing and operations for organizations that are striving to sell to the enterprise marketplace. So companies like 3M, Target, Walmart, John Deere, got lots of past clients. So really been involved in startup from, the garage startup where there's no available resources, all the way to second round investing companies, and even being involved in a couple of, or actually a few mergers and acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a really, really strong background in sales, and marketing, and really kind of driving organizations forward to grow.
Yeah.
And that's where my background comes from. I'm also, I do business coaching, but I was a ski coach, a football coach, and all those other type of things. So I bring a lot of that go get 'em stuff to it,
Uh-huh.
and really I'm about, at this stage in my career, I'm really about helping other people get their companies going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of fun. I thrive in the resource vacuum of startup and kind of digging and trying to get it done with limited resources available. And I'm actually on a trip next week to go help a company hit one of their first big deals in the enterprise game. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty excited about doing that.
So where pivoting is concerned, how many years? I mean, our audience has got to know the years of expertise and experience that you've had, and the pivots that you've gone in, that brings this show the credibility that it needs.
Well, I mean, if I took a 30,000 foot view of the amount of pivots I did, it'd look like I was dancing a jig. So, yeah, it's a lot of experience, and not all, me being in the pilot house and driving, but actually being one of the front lines in those situations where, especially in sales, right? Because in
Mhm.
sales, you're kind of the tip of the spear, and being in the place to see what's going on in the market that's going to impact the company and how the company really needs to react to it.
Yeah.
That your best salespeople are out there keeping their ear to the ground and understanding what the competition is doing in the marketplace. Keeping an eye on your local marketplace. I mean, when we say salespeople, it doesn't, particularly mean we're selling a piece of software or, you know, a tractor for that matter. Your salesperson could be your barista at the local
Mhm.
coffee shop.
Yeah.
That's your salesperson, and they're should have their ear to the ground with
Yep.
what the customers are saying, and kind of collating that information so that you can bring it back to management and go, hey, we're running into this stuff. We might need to think about this and take another direction.
Hmm.
So it kind of transcends, uh, it transcends industries to the point of, understanding your environment.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, love that. Love that. And I never thought about, even in myself. So my connections with Chick-fil-A and other organizations in food service, because that's where I primarily have been serving, as well as medical industry and oil and gas, but the food service especially. I never considered myself in sales, and it wasn't until I got around guys like you that I understood I was selling the whole time. I mean, every time I'm ringing somebody up, I'm selling myself first. I'm getting myself out there. I'm welcoming them in, and when they come back, I've sold. I think that's probably the greatest commission that any salesperson can get, is that they come back for round two. They come back a second time, and we call that in the industry raving fans.
Yeah. We call it, my industry, account management. So it's not counter management, it's
Yeah,
account management.
yeah, counter manager.
So every person that comes up and orders a cheeseburger is an account.
Uh-huh.
So, or
They
I'm
are.
sorry, Chick-fil-A. I got to speak
Yes.
in chicken. I can't speak
Yeah.
in beef.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Industry leader.
Outstanding. So now that we've kind of introduced ourselves, and I didn't mean to interrupt you up front, but I just kind of wanted to give
Yeah,
a kind of a
yeah,
broad
totally. I'm
background of who we
to,
are and
to
what we're
dive
going to be
in, and what
about.
people do need to know who we are.
Yeah. So I'm going to lead you back. What you
Okay.
get
Yeah, so let's do that. So, I mean, guys, the question that we want to address today is just that. Like when businesses, they seem to know what you want. They seem to and exactly what you want. Like, and sometimes more than what you. I didn't even know I wanted this until they actually helped me to understand that. It's likely because they have learned to adapt to the ever evolving landscape of consumer behavior, how people buy things, and understanding that, understanding their target audience and what they call in the space today avatars and things like that. So that's what we'd like to begin to unpack today. And so we put together a couple of things that I think would be helpful. Paul, we want to roll those out.
One of the things I always like to discuss when we're talking about consumer behavior is kind of understanding the consumer's mindset, right? How do we do that?
Mhm.
And major companies, I'll use Target for example. Not that they understand the mindset very well from the global perspective, but they do market research. They understand how through frontline cash registers, through video, through all that behavior of
Yeah.
their customers. I'm
Mhm.
particularly curious because you come from Chick-fil-A and they are, major corporation. What the process was to and is to really kind of grasp onto that information.
Yeah, so the process at Chick-fil-A is, I mean, you're talking about like research. I mean, they are constantly looking for, I think two words that stands out to me for them as far as like understanding consumer behavior is relevance and dominance. I mean, they're not they're not looking to compete with, so Chick-fil-A, they're not looking to compete with Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's, McChicken sandwich. They're looking to dominate in their industry by staying relevant to their particular uh, um, customer class. And there's a certain type of people. I mean, like obviously, you're going to go into Chick-fil-A, you're going to pay maybe twice as much as you would pay at McDonald's. But there's something that those patrons, we could call them those raving fans, what they're looking for. Like this person gets me because of the yes, sir. I mean, it almost takes you back in time to where people were respectful, where you experienced something. It wasn't just transactional, it was relational.
So you would say Chick-fil-A was more about the attitude of the servers, even though you're getting half the grease you would in McDonald's. Um, oh.
Yes. Yes, so it started like Paul. I mean, just like they have Chick-fil-A has like when anybody, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're back of the house, front of the house, you're in the dining room, in the lobby, whatever, whoever you are, they say that whenever you see a customer, one of our, they don't even call them customers, by the way, they call them guests.
Mhm.
And there's a relationship attitude, to your point, behind that we put signs out there inviting people to come in.
Mm.
So if you invite me and my wife to your house to have dinner with you and your wife, you're not going to say, "Hey, our customers here." You're going to say, "Our guests are here," because you invited us here. And so they look at that, like they remove the verbiage of customer and they look at it as guests because it's the highly relationship. So when they come in, they call it the core four. So you start with your eyes, and then you go to your mouth, and then you go to the tone of your voice, and then you go to your heart. So they say you're going to make eye contact, you're going to share a smile, you're going to speak enthusiastically, and you're going to make a connection. And it sounds so simple, but like it's so lost. It gets lost, and it's like I got next. I got like you've become a next, and they're not even looking at you.
Right. So understanding the kind of the anecdotal portion of the customer service experience, um, we want to help small business, right? Kind of get the
Mhm.
data behind it,
Yeah.
understanding, you know, exactly what their customers are doing, and from I like the discussion wrapped around Chick-fil-A because everyone knows who they are. Being there so long, how did you gather the data? Like what data made Chick-fil-A make certain changes in the way they deliver? Now I know very much what Chick-fil-A did during the pandemic and how not how they did, but that they analyzed customer traffic, right?
Hmm.
And based on that. So let's talk a little bit because the anecdotal stuff is great. I mean, we know that great customer service brings in more customers. We know that that's clear ubiquitously across all
Right.
industries. But collecting very specific customer data and making changes based on that. How does Chick-fil-A go about doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, everything they monitor everything that has in connection to their business. I think one of they have, the customer cares, right? So
Mhm.
if they don't call it complaints, they call it cares. I mean, like, because we care, we're going to drop this note in here or whatever. But also they monitor the phone calls. Like if somebody, calls in the corporate store, says, "Hey, I had a bad experience there," that's an opportunity for the directors. That's an opportunity for us to say, we received this, and then like it's got different levels, different tiers. So if it's just, like, very low on the totem pole, they may just say, "Oh, we're going to send out you a DOC. That's a digital offer coupon. So we're going to send out, for a chicken sandwich because it's minimal. But oh, there was a hair on my food. What are you? Or there was a piece of blue plastic in my fried chicken. We know what the blue plastic was from because the spicy chicken is wrapped in, it comes in the blue plastic before it's all breaded, and so they know that somehow that got in there, and we need to correct that." And so like it has different tiers. And when you talk to them, the directors have to call them and say, we use the herd model, but that's all documented. And so they get to document on that. Of course, they're tracking all of I mean, every little thing, their cost of goods, their waste. I mean, everything's being tracked and monitored. There's our Chick-fil-A, our local Chick-fil-A. Now, sometimes this is just operator things to make them better. They have a word, it's called accuracy on the drive through, and it's spelled out ACCURACY. So it's just called accuracy. And that operator has said, and it happens in the AM shift and the PM shift, and there's a split at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So what they have to do is they start in the morning at 6 a.m. when they open, all the way to like 3 o'clock with the word accuracy. And if you ever put out an order that somebody else has to come back in and it was inaccurate through the drive-through, because that, let's face it, that's the engine. We're moving that way. You have to take a letter down.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely. So does Chick-fil-A do a lot on social media? Do they
Oh,
pull out
huge,
what's
yeah, huge on social media, and they recently started growing, into their audience through television and commercials and stuff like that. But their social media, they have, what's interesting is every local Chick-fil-A has their own social media manager
okay?
that takes care of their specific their target, because that's the whole point, is to be involved in that community, to know what that community needs. And so when they launched, like they did in our area, Paul, they did a spicy grilled sandwich.
Mhm.
So they just were going to test this in this region to see. They would think in the Southwest that would sell. It didn't. And because of all the different stores, and they're tracking each one of these models, and the input from their operators are meeting, 4 and 5, 6 times a year together for that region.
Now, that's a great thing because a lot of companies try, especially in the restaurant industry, try to be the same throughout the country, right? Is there
Yeah, right.
any delineation or segregation by territory for Chick-fil-A, and does that change their SOPs or standard operating procedures based on region, town, location? Is there any
Yes. Okay. Did you know that you could go into Chick-fil-A and come out with a BLT? Now, so this is great. Now you shouldn't because it's not a menu item. But well, I get it down in Texas. Well, you're not supposed to because like you can get a bun, right? I just want a bun.
Yeah.
Could you add lettuce and tomato, add bacon and a slice of cheese? And you're going to be paying like $2.35 for all of these ads. I mean, like, because you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it because it's not a menu item. Chick-fil-A is not known for their BLTs.
Right.
But there was a time when people would come in and they would order a BLT.
Yeah, I always find that interesting because, like, McDonald's, I used to live in Portland, Maine. And when I first moved to Portland, Maine, uh, you know, got in there, got the apartment set up. We were running around, we were driving down the road, and it was soft shell season in Maine, and every McDonald's had lobster rolls. I was like,
Wow.
what is going on
Yeah.
here? Why
Yes.
would I ever get a lobster roll from Mickey D's? But I
Mhm.
have to admit, they were pretty good because we had to try one out.
Yeah.
They weren't too bad, but they were very clear on the region that they were in. And I'm curious, and this is like one of the most important things because again, we're trying to translate this down or break it down for small business how they can
Right.
interact that. How do they determine that's great? Are they doing customer surveys? Are they, again, going out on social media? How are they getting that data that says, hey, we're going to do a BLT here in
Yeah.
Texas because
Mhm.
Texas BLT, Texans like their BLTs. I would think
Yeah.
they'd like their steak sandwiches, but all right,
No
deal.
doubt.
As opposed to chicken, but
Yeah.
free
Well, I
range.
think so. So a lot of just like okay, so our cell phones, there's a Chick-fil-A app, right? And so they're getting a lot of their traffic and a lot of their data from the Chick-fil-A app. What are people buying? When they're and how are they ordering? And so they're tracking all of this. I have yet to be in a room where all of the questions for all of the data is mentioned, but there's 1,500 people in the headquarters in Atlanta. And here's the thing: two miles down the road from the headquarters is Dwarf House. It's not even called a Chick-fil-A. They offer Chick-fil-A products, but you can go to the Dwarf House and get a hot brown. I mean, so you can go get different like an egg and bacon, and I mean like they don't offer that like that at normal Chick-fil-A's, but that's the original. The Dwarf House is the original where the chicken sandwich was pushed out before in 1967. These are out. So there are places where you can get different items. But what I find is interesting to me on your questions is that there's certain items that I loved, but they're not on the menu. And
Mhm.
and like they used to have a chicken salad sandwich. It was, I mean, like if you're traveling and you're like, I don't need anything fried, I'm behind the wheel for 12 hours or 9 hours or whatever. A chicken salad sandwich from Chick-fil-A was awesome. They used to have coleslaw. It was awesome coleslaw. They used to have a brownie, like they brought the brownie back recently, but the coleslaw they didn't bring it back, and the reason wasn't because of the consumer. It was actually because of the challenges it brought to the kitchen because they
Cool.
could not, they made a promise that you're going to come through and we've earned your trust. Come through the drive-through, we will get you out. And those challenges made them not be able to meet those expectations, so they removed them from the menu. And of course, it caused a ruckus until people just got used to it.
Yeah, so that would be counter to what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
making decisions based on their needs as opposed to what their
Right.
customers
And
want.
that was because, and what my point on that was, they're collecting data from everywhere. And a lot of
Mhm.
business owners are not considering, I mean, you've consulted with them. I know I have, where they don't even have the cost of goods. They don't have that number, or they don't have, maybe they don't have, they're not tracking their waste. And
Right.
like in a restaurant, that there's a challenge but there needs to be some kind of process. Even if it's a factory, I mean, how many boxes or how many things are we wasting? In delivery and so forth.
Right. Food cost is extremely important in the restaurant industry. You
Mm.
have to manage
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
So that's I originally came from restaurants, so I understand that very well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I was just it was like a question wrapped around kind of you know focused availability of certain product in certain areas because of cultural considerations,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Because you have
Yep.
local culture and you do that. And from a small business perspective, you have to be really, I'm here in Minneapolis where it's broken up by block. The cultures change, right?
Mm.
Chicago the same way. And so smaller businesses that aren't national chains, it's very easy for them to focus on the local population and what's popular there. Ergo, the main example. And I was curious if Chick-fil-A really spent a lot of time trying to localize their menu based on the area that they're in. So
Hmm.
I was curious. And you talked a lot about. I like your example with the coleslaw, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I know coleslaw goes bad very
Yeah.
quick,
Absolutely. Yep.
mayo based.
Hmm.
So if you don't have, 40% of your traffic ordering coleslaw, you're throwing it out every 2 days.
Yep.
And so is that the issue? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. The issue was in the coleslaw, and then the preparation of it. It was a perishable good.
yeah,
And so then they went through like a superfood, and that superfood, with kale, making up the kale salad and mixing that up. There was just a time prep because there was like it has to sit together like 45 minutes in the walk-in a cool temperature. Well, I mean, if you ran out and now you have to make it per the recipe, uh, people ain't waiting around for a side of superfood, with coleslaw, or with the kale salad and stuff like that. So they've discontinued that item because it was too hard on the kitchen to continue to keep up with.
absolutely. So so we talked about a lot of things. I'm just going to kind of summarize because we really talked about kind of understanding consumer mindset both locally and globally, right? And
Hmm.
then having the digital and online presence to support that, to support getting the data from social media, getting the data from current customers, and being able to go through that. We talked about personalizing the experience based
Yeah,
on where you're at.
and
Uh,
that would be my gift set. Is primarily, the not the customer's always right, but when they're wrong, I can still be agreeable when in my disposition, even though my position is different.
um, sustainability and ethical practices, right?
Yep.
The coleslaw is a perfect example of that. It's not sustainable.
Hmm.
So why would you risk delivering a subpar product or that mayonnaise being the core ingredient in there, getting your customers sick? And then one thing that we haven't talked about, and I think we had a couple other case studies, but I think Chick-fil-A has one of the best ones. So we'll just, since we're there, let's just
Yeah.
stay. Um, and I think I told you this before. Our local Chick-fil-A here in Chaska, when the pandemic first hit, everything in Minnesota, they overreacted, right? They just like closed everybody down. We had
Right.
hundreds of restaurants that closed. It was very sad. Some great restaurants, but they closed the dining rooms. They closed this. And Chick-fil-A like went to town. I don't even think they took a breath. And they closed their dining room and literally at the same time they opened up a second drive-through.
Yeah.
So they had two drive-throughs side by side. They had set up two tents with tables outside. They were walking to take people's orders, and then they were carrying the orders out to the outside car.
Yeah.
So they were moving a double through, even though they weren't um, fundamentally set up to do it.
Mm.
They created, and the interesting thing is, the first day that they did this, nobody knew what was going on. The second day they did this, there were lines 30 cars back, doubled, and
Yeah.
it was amazing reaction. They really understood how to pivot
Hmm.
and change their business model to fit the current situation with the pandemic coming out.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really amazing because they did not, and now that they actually shut down for a month, 2 months ago, to actually build that second one in, because the traffic has never stopped.
Yeah.
Okay, it went through the pandemic. It didn't slow down for them. They're one of the only places that I see on the strip that has that kind of traffic going through it. And I really, anecdotally think it was not only the quality of the food, it was the quality of the service, and that they changed their service model to fit the situation that we were all in at the time.
Yeah. I think
So,
one of the beliefs is adversity inspires innovation. I mean, so like, I mean, they're so creative. I will say this, just the behind the scenes on that, they were already talking prior to COVID coming in. They were thinking, like we are the model, when everybody looks at, like, hey, if, the social media stuff,
mhm.
Chick-fil-A, if they could just, they might be able to run our government the way they run their drive-through, we'd be in great shape or whatever, like, because the speed, let Chick-fil-A operate our IRS. We wouldn't have to wait so long for this, that, and the other, or for a phone call or whatever. So, yeah, and they run with that. I mean, like, but they're creative. And I think the word is flexibility. I mean, so when you're going to adapt your business model, if you are so stuck, it has to be done this way, then when a global pandemic shuts everybody else down, and I think when everybody else got shut down, I noticed same thing you noticed with the Chick-fil-A in your town. I noticed in ours, they did the same thing. Well, that's coming from their corporate office, where we got a problem, we can solve it. Let's get innovative. We're not coming out of this room until we got a solution. And so they put the solution, they improve you get a result, you improve a result, that kind of thing. You know what happened in our town?
What's that?
People start copying
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
other businesses. They didn't adapt their business model to address the need of the consumer. They adapted their business model to mimic Chick-fil-A's so that they could address the needs of the consumer.
You know what I say to that, right? Good
What's
job.
that?
They
Yeah.
recognized it. They recognized that they
Yes.
could improve their business by following a better model, and they grabbed
Yep.
onto it and they leveraged it, which is pivoting regardless of the thing. The key to pivot is understanding the environment you're in, and being able to go, oh, there's either a better way to do this, and I can,
Hmm.
increase my revenue, my traffic, and my customer base, or
Yeah.
to avoid a tragic situation for my company,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Fire away.
So I think it comes down to the belief in, I believe there's an answer. There's got to be a solution. There's got to be a way, because I love my business. I want to continue my business. I believe there's an answer. There's a solution. Maybe somebody else out there has the solution, and I haven't, my ego won't allow me to see it right now. So I come down, believe that there's a solution, and I don't see anybody else solve this. I mean, imagine if Chick-fil-A had waited on somebody else to copy them. Who would they have copied?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, there was nobody to copy, so they had to, like, there's a there's something inspirational to me about being the tip of the spear type of organization.
Mhm.
Like, we don't have it, so we create it.
So that's a good point, and one of the things that I see, because there's a difference between large companies. Chick-fil-A, I would consider that a larger organization. They're a
Sure.
mid-sized company by definition, but they're a larger organization than small business, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm talking micro business. I'm not talking small business, 5,000 employees. I'm
Right.
talking micro business, 10 employees. There's a
Yeah.
big difference there. And one of the things that most people don't recognize is that when you're a large organization like Chick-fil-A, you have an entire department committed to analyzing data and helping managers
Mhm.
and locations make informed decisions strategically in
Right.
their area. As a micro business, you don't have that option. We
Mhm.
talk a lot about, um, you know, running. I always use Navy terms, right? You can't steer the ship from the engine room is probably one of my favorites, right? But when you're a small business of 10 people, it's almost impossible for those business owners to get up out of the engine room and get high enough to see where the ship is going. So they
Mhm.
don't see the iceberg as it's coming,
Right.
right? So
Always reactive.
it,
They hit the iceberg. Now what? We got to do something. Start bailing.
right. So when we talk about pivoting, you have to see what's coming
Yeah.
to have a strategic plan to get around it or a tactical plan to get around it. And most of them don't see it's coming until it's already run them over.
Mhm.
So, based on the, I've got one case study. It's Little Rock Printing. They wanted to transition to a e-commerce model. They were a brick and mortar shop in Little Rock, small joint. Um, Pandemic, right? All
Yeah.
that stuff went on. They decided to overhaul and go to an
Mhm.
e-commerce model. They overhauled their website, improved navigation, optimized their product pages, reduce customer friction, and enhance their online shopping experience. Their outcome is they transition to a 76% increase in monthly website traffic.
It's
That's from
huge.
July 2021. Um, They had a 9% conversion ratio in July 2021,
Mhm.
15.8% conversion by May of 2022.
Yeah.
They
Right.
pivoted to an e-commerce model because the local model with the pandemic was not producing as much customer support. They
Mhm.
had to
Yep.
pivot to a more global perspective on their business, right? Heard me
Mhm.
talk about, think global, but be local,
Mhm.
right? So they took their local and went global. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing Chick-fil-A did, but the CEO or the president of this particular company was keeping an eye out. And he
Yeah.
did this in 2021. Okay. That was just after the pandemic started. But he could see
Mhm.
that based on the lockdowns and all the things that were happening, that he could go out and he's like, I need to change the way I do business today because this thing's going to kill us if we don't.
Yep.
So he was a little reactive, but he was really proactive on the long term solution. This is
Mhm.
exactly what Chick-fil-A did to respond to the pandemic situation. So um, the point being is you got, as a small business, even though you are in, you have to
Mhm.
take time to be on,
Yeah.
right? What do you think?
Mhm. So I'm thinking. I love. Thank you for that case study. That's brilliant. A great way to prove the point that we're trying to make as far as adapting. Most people, and this is just not just for business, but most of us, we have to hurt bad enough before we change. Like if the pain's not bad enough, we're not going to do anything different. Like, and sometimes it's like, you know what? I mean, like, okay, so I really want to get $15,000 a month, and you're at 9. So you get up to 12, and you're like, you stopped. You kind of put your foot off the gas pedal, and you're not pushing. Why? Because now it just doesn't hurt as bad. It's still painful. I mean, because that's not your target. That was never your goal. And so most people, they don't they they wait until they hurt bad enough that they got to make a pivot. They got to make an adjustment. And what if we knew enough? What if we could go out and know enough there we wanted to make a change? Or what if we could go out and learn enough that we could make a change? And I think that's where the rise of, people like what you and I do in our industry has been so effective, especially in the small business sector, is because we can help them learn or know enough that you can make these adjustments. There's an adjustment right now going on with Chick-fil-A where the model, I mean, like they buy, they own the property, they own the building, and instead of building FSUs, freestanding units, they're going to only build drive-throughs.
Mhm.
Why is that? Well, because it's like, hey, that when Truett Cathy created Chick-fil-A in 1967, it was for restoration. That's restaurant was a place of restoration, restoring, refreshment.
Mhm.
But now it's fast paced. Life responds to speed. And so people they want it in and they want to go. They want it fast and they want to go. So they're responding to the needs of people today. Now they're not all going that way, but they're going to start marketing and leveraging that in different communities where it's drive-through only. 3. So one stand, and I've seen the beautiful architecture of it, where you've got a 2-story, and you've got these on either side, these 3 lanes, so 6 lanes total, where you're coming in and you're getting
Yeah, I think to the point of stealing other people's models, I think that's where Chick-fil-A came up with that. So there's 2 models they blended. You're telling me that
yeah,
I'm seeing both. One is the coffee shop drive-through model, right? Have you
yeah,
seen not Starbucks full bore, but these little coffee shops been popping up all over the country that are almost the size of a trailer, right? They do
yeah,
drive-through only, and they
yeah.
process a ton of coffee drinkers. And
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know if you remember. Well, I know you remember. You got to. You're almost as old as I am. Um, the uh, the drive-in,
Yeah, absolutely.
drive-in
Yeah.
restaurant, which by the way, I was a car hop at a drive-in in high school.
No, did you have to do roller
I
skates?
no roller skates because it was on a dirt road, so that would have been bad. But yeah, right next to the Sioux Locks in Sioux, Michigan, there's a little drive-in called the West Pier Drive-In, and I got hired there at like 14 years old, and I was too
Hmm.
young to cook, and so I yeah I did it. I was a car hop. I was the only male car hop in town, I think, anywhere
Tips.
at the time. So, but anyway, that model was really quick. Now the drive-in was a slower service situation because it was cooked to order. Our
Hmm.
process of to Chick-fil-A's benefit, our cooking processes have sped up a lot over the years.
Yeah.
But I would say they combined those two and did a little
Yeah.
thievery.
I agree. I agree. Now, there was a burger shop named Rally's in the if you remember that, the Big Buford was one of their, and I'm not sure they're still around, but Rally's Burgers, they had the double drive-through, but they only had 1 lane on either side, and they didn't perfect. I mean, like, but I've seen like the 7 levels brew, coffee brew or something like that. They have the 2 lanes where you can come down there and they have basically a car hop, a coffee hop, whatever that's coming to your, and taking. And they've got this one has the personal touch. And we were talking about earlier about personalization and customer support, where a lot of people want to talk to a person.
Mm.
Like we can do, there's a lot of AI movement coming into restaurants where robots are, they're putting robotics in making the food or even taking the orders and stuff. Kiosks, McDonald's is moving to a lot of that. And my fear is that you're going to move away from some of the personalization.
Yeah, I would say you are, but it's almost a necessary.
Yeah, and exactly, and those are the things, those are the challenges that businesses are facing. Where like, oh, but we're all about the people, and we don't want to do that because of the people, because we've always been this place where it's the my pleasure, and we breathe the same air. Yeah, but 2020 was not a great time to breathe the same air.
Well, it's not even that. It's part, most of the businesses out there are struggling with employees. At the
Mm,
bottom line
sure.
is there is a good section of the population, due to the environment, the politics, a host of different reasons, do
Sure.
not want to work,
Hmm.
right? And some of the ones coming out of college want to be the CEO the day they get their feet on the floor.
Yeah.
So so there's a real struggle, especially in the service industry. A lot of the restaurants now are closing because they can't get employees, right?
Hmm.
We can get
Yep.
into the whole vision, mission, value.
Or they can't keep them. They can't
They can't even
keep
start
them.
them, right? They can't,
Yep.
So that's a topic for a later day. But
Yes, we definitely got to do that to serve our community here.
yeah, getting and retaining employees is a huge thing in the small business market, and there are ways to do it.
Yep.
And we've got lots of business models that really work. And I'm glad I said that, because that's really kind of the translation between the large business and the small business, is really understanding your business model, right?
Hmm.
Knowing it and being able to execute on it. Where the resources are available in the larger organization, and the resources may be between one and two people in the smaller organization. So
Hmm.
um, later on down the road, we'll talk about how to plan and execute with a small staff, right?
Yep.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about um, the things that you can do to increase revenue and cut costs with a
Yep.
small staff, and building efficiency in your staff and buy-in, so you can get that efficiency out of the staff, and also incentivizing them so they perform better. So
Yeah, scaling to where you own a business and not a job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So so today, to close out, what are the big takeaways from today, Trace?
Um, Big takeaways. Big takeaways. Well, what we just talked about, as far as, I mean, like the things that are coming, is I think that'll be helpful for our listeners, the ones that are like, okay, so this was great. This, we were going somewhere. I think just talking about when we were on, I think we spent the most time on adapting the business model to serve the world as it is today. For me, I think we spent the bulk of our time there, because a lot of businesses are struggling to do that. Maybe they survived the pandemic, and a lot of them didn't. Especially in the small business, they did not survive, and that's sad. I miss them. Well, some of them.
Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes it's just the storm comes to, clean off the dead limbs from the tree. But I think that was, for me, that was the biggest takeaway for me, was the adapting the business model. Because, like, I had this dream and I put it together, and then 20 years later I have to wait, I have to change this model, I have to make this adjustment. I didn't get into business for that. Well, it's just time to sell. But if you respond well instead of react, if you respond to it well, and like you said, I loved your analogy about being in the engine room. You cannot see the iceberg from that vantage point. So, building a team that the business owner needs to be up top. They got to be able to see what's coming, and maybe even have somebody even higher than that you can leverage. But then the engine room's got to keep running too.
Absolutely.
Well, for you, what was your biggest aha for today?
I really like going down the Chick-fil-A model. Um, and the takeaways, like, if and I want to explain the takeaways as a small business owner, right? As the thing. Um, there was some embedding of this concept as we were talking, and I kind of want to bring it out, because we talked about, the small business owner just doesn't have the time to get on the business because he's always in the business. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you get on the business?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest takeaway from this would be, I need to take time to get on the business. So I can't let the business run me. I've got to run the business.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest takeaway would be to schedule 6 hours a week to
Mm-hmm.
work on the business and get out of the business. and to make sure that I am spending the amount of time to both vision where the business is going and research what the market's doing, research what the competitors are doing, whether you're small in market, local, or you're global. Being that you don't have the resource to do that, then you need to do it. Or you need to hire a contractor to do the market research in the local area, do the surveying, do all the things that a Chick-fil-A would do to gain the insight on your marketplace so that you can make adjustments ahead of the curve and reap the rewards.
Yeah. Yeah, leveraging an outside source. I mean, obviously, we can't see our own blind spots. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes leveraging that outside source, maybe they do come with the specialized knowledge that you're lacking in that area, but also sometimes it's just maybe they don't know, and their question's a curious based question is like, okay, so what are you not seeing that you think you should be? Well, probably the business owner is not asking that particular question to themselves. They're like, it's up in front of my face. And really, that's just the leaf. The root of the problem is really what we go after. And I know that it's been huge benefiting to other of my clients and myself personally, because I can't see what I can't see until somebody asks me a powerful question that helps me to understand, oh, yeah, that's the real need right now.
Absolutely. So going forward, we're going to close out for the day, but going forward, we're going to talk about these things. But what we're actually also going to do is we're going to provide actionable insights in this show. And we're going to bring in other business owners and interview them and talk about what problems they're going through and what they're seeing in the marketplace. And then we're going to provide actionable insights. So if you're going through similar or the same things, you can hang up this thing and act on it. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm really excited to work with you, Tracy. Thanks so much.
And I love the collaboration.
Outstanding.
I want to help a lot of business owners.
Absolutely. So till next time, next Thursday, 4:00 Central Time, we'll see you back.
Yes. Take care, everyone.